Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating and I think intensely practical journey into a source that calls itself simply a Powerless Mage presents.
It's an intriguing name, isn't it?
It really is.
It sort of suggests that, true wisdom and influence don't come from casting spells or forcing things,
Yeah.
but from understanding the operating principles of reality itself.
Right.
And that's pretty much our mission today.
Exactly. Our mission is to take a deep dive into a set of principles that, you see them online all the time, and they often get dismissed.
Oh, absolutely.
They're known as the spiritual rules. And you've probably scrolled past them, maybe thought they were cliches, or even filed them under that really frustrating label of toxic positivity.
And we are going to challenge that label today. Because when you really peel back the layers of these rules, what you find aren't these feel-good platitudes.
Not at all.
No. What the source material calls them, and I think this is perfect, is uncomfortable truths.
That's it. Uncomfortable.
They demand acceptance, they force you to confront reality, and honestly, they're the exact opposite of easy. This isn't about wishing your troubles away.
Yeah.
It's about understanding why those troubles were, in a way, inevitable.
And how to finally let them go.
Precisely.
And for you listening, maybe you're grappling with self-doubt, or you're stuck on some persistent regret, or just that, that gnawing feeling of dissatisfaction. The promise here is pretty radical. We're looking at 4 simple sentences that the source argues can completely transform your perspective, move you out of that cycle of guilt and into, genuine peace and freedom.
Exactly. And our goal today isn't about, theological or scientific proof. This source is very clear on that. You can't prove these laws are some kind of absolute cosmic truth.
Right. The value is practical.
It's deeply pragmatic.
Okay.
These rules offer an internal tool that has, for many, brought tranquility, created distance from emotional devastation, and just made accepting life's challenges more manageable. If you're looking for a blueprint for emotional well-being, this is it.
Okay, so let's lay out the foundation. What are these 4 laws that work together as a set? The first one is, the person who arrives is the right person.
Second, what happens is the only thing that could have happened.
Third, when it begins is the right time.
And finally, number 4, when it ends is the right time.
And hearing them all laid out like that, I think, you might feel a little overwhelmed. Maybe even resistant.
Yeah, it can sound like it's stripping away your personal choice.
That's the feeling. But that resistance, that's exactly what we need to unpack. These laws aren't about blind faith. They're about understanding that accepting reality, who you were then and who you are now, is the most direct path to actually gaining freedom.
But we can't just stay on the surface.
Yeah.
We have to go deep into the mechanics. And that means starting with the biggest stumbling block for most people.
Which is?
The idea of destiny.
Okay, let's unpack that core resistance right away. Because when you look at those rules, especially the one that says, what happens is the only thing that could have happened, it immediately brings up fate or destiny. And for most of us, that feels incredibly passive. Like, if destiny's ruined the show, what's the point of even trying? Where's my agency in all of this?
That is the most common and I think the most logical objection. And this source material tackles it head on. It really critiques the general sort of religious idea of destiny we all have.
So it's not a pre-written script.
Exactly. When we're talking about these laws, destiny is not a divine blueprint. It's not some grand cosmic story written by a deity that's forcing your hand. The source calls that whole idea a misplaced generality.
So we need a new definition, a working definition that's focused on, practical reality. What is the specific definition of destiny we're using here?
The definition is actually really elegant. Destiny is the tendency without influence.
The tendency without influence.
Think of it like a default setting. It's the natural, inevitable course of things when we don't apply any external power, when we don't interfere. It's the path that unfolds on its own.
Wow, okay. That one distinction changes everything. It takes it from this idea of predetermined fatalism to being just a simple statement of natural consequence. If I drop a ball, gravity dictates its tendency is to fall. That's not fate, it's just physics.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that new definition is critical because the entire logical framework of all 4 laws really rests on understanding the second one.
Okay.
If you can truly integrate the implications of Law 2, the others suddenly become crystal clear. They stop being mystical.
So let's dedicate our time here. Let's build that foundation, the second law. What happens is the only thing that could have happened. For someone listening who's dealing with a huge regret, a lost job, a relationship mistake, that statement can feel I don't know, almost arrogant.
It feels impossible. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you claim this is universally true?
Right.
It's uncomfortable because it forces us to look past the surface details of what happened and focus on the mechanism of human action. The framework says that every single decision, every action, or even inaction, which is a decision in itself, is the perfect, inevitable result of three interconnected, deeply personal variables that were operating in that exact moment.
And we have to go deep on these three things because this is where the freedom is hiding. So, the three buckets that dictate all our actions are, first, who I am. This is your character at that moment. It's all your history, your genetics, your skills, your mental health, all the biases you've picked up.
Yeah.
And the second one, what I know. This is just your level of information at that specific time, your education, the data you had, the cultural context, the specific facts you had to work with.
And third, what I feel. This is your emotional state in that instant, your motivation, whether you were angry or happy or just apathetic, and all those subconscious drivers.
Now, here is the crucial part that people often miss. These three variables are completely non-static.
They're not set in stone.
Not at all. They're in constant dynamic motion. Think of it like a personal algorithm that's always updating. You read one article and what I know changes.
You have one bad conversation and what I feel changes. You practice a new skill and who I am updates. You are literally a different person with a different decision-making algorithm from 1 second to the next.
And that constant motion is exactly what makes the past inevitable. We all fall into that regret trap, right?
All the time.
It's always phrased like, if only I had known X back then, I would have done Y. We psychologically torture ourselves by judging our past actions using the information we only got after the fact.
And the second law just dismantles that entire loop with cold, hard logic. At the moment that regrettable thing happened, there was physically no way you could have known what you know now.
That knowledge just wasn't in the what I know bucket yet.
It didn't exist for you.
Yeah.
And even if you knew about a different possibility, your who I am variable, maybe your lack of confidence back then or your what I feel variable, your fear, your apathy, determined the action you actually took.
Let's use an example. Say you regret not taking a business opportunity 10 years ago. Today, you're confident, you know the market, you're stable, and you look back and think, why did I let fear stop me? The framework explains it. 10 years ago, your who I am included inexperience and financial anxiety. Your what I knew didn't include the fact that the market was about to boom. So the decision to play it safe
was the only decision that person, the you from 10 years ago, could have possibly made. It was the necessary output of those specific inputs at that time.
It wasn't the best decision by today's standards.
No, but it was the only possible decision for that self. And accepting that just shifts all the energy. Instead of blaming the person you were, you recognize that person was doing their best with what they had.
You accept the past as just an input, not a failure.
The ultimate point of law, too, is that the past, no matter how painful it was just the natural consequence of you being exactly who you were with what you knew and feeling what you felt. You weren't broken. You were just limited by that moment in time.
And that realization, that's the cornerstone of inner peace. It stops the psychological torture of demanding a different outcome from a self that doesn't even exist anymore.
It removes that heavy cloak of guilt.
So we want you to try this on right now. When you look back at a decision you regret, maybe a time you let fear or apathy guide you, can you honestly acknowledge that it was the only possible decision for the person you were at that specific moment, given your knowledge, your history, and your feelings? What freedom comes from releasing that past self from blame?
Okay, so now that we have that mechanism down, the idea that law 2 is basically the physics of personal decision-making.
Right.
We have to apply that same difficult logic to the world around us, and specifically to the people we meet. Which brings us to the first law. The person who arrives is the right person.
And this is often the hardest law for people to swallow, especially if you experience a deep betrayal or abuse or injustice.
Yeah, how can a truly terrible person be the right person to show up in your life? It sounds like you're just rationalizing trauma.
It's a necessary challenge to that idea. But the framework isn't about rationalizing pain. It's about contextualizing it. We have to connect this right back to law 2.
That abusive person, that demanding boss, that incredibly supportive partner, every single one of them is acting based on their own unique, complex, and constantly shifting variables.
Their own who I am, what I know, what I feel.
Exactly. And their arrival in your life at that precise moment was the only thing that could have happened, given the alignment of all the collective variables in the universe, including yours.
So the idea isn't that they were magically sent to you.
No, not at all. The concept is that their presence was the inevitable consequence of a huge, complex system in motion.
And here's the useful part, right? Their function isn't always pleasant, but their purpose is always the same.
Yes, their teachings, whether they're harsh or pleasant, subtle or profound, they contribute to changing your variables.
They're the catalyst.
They are the catalyst. A harsh criticism might update your what I know about a certain skill. A betrayal might fundamentally shift who I am by forcing you to build better boundaries. A mentor might update what I feel by boosting your self-worth. Every interaction is an energetic exchange that updates your internal algorithm.
The source gives that anecdotal example of the activist, which makes it so clear. An activist is convinced that anger is the only way to create change. Then they meet someone, a critic, who shows them that their anger is actually alienating the people they need as allies.
The encounter is painful. It's difficult.
Right. But the decision they make afterward, to adopt a calmer, more strategic approach, was the right decision because that painful interaction created a new, wiser person. The critic was the right catalyst for that specific update.
The difficulty, the reason we fight this law so much, is our incredible urge to control this flow. We want to be able to dictate who gets to come into our lives.
We want to pick and choose.
Yes, we want to deflect the difficult people and only allow the good ones in.
And that's a perfect visual for this. Trying to control all the complex interactions in your life is exactly like standing at one of those giant pachinko machines.
Yeah, the vertical pinball game.
Right. And you're trying to dictate the exact path of every single metal ball. And each person is a ball with its own momentum, its own force, its own direction. And you're just one ball among thousands.
You can't possibly control the collective motion.
Yeah.
You can't ensure only gentle, useful people show up. So you have to accept that this beautiful, chaotic reality means interactions will happen.
Both the difficult ones and the easy ones.
And your task is just to extract the lesson that updates your variables for the next round. Accepting Law 1 is the key to minimizing so much emotional suffering in relationships.
Which flows perfectly into the third law. When it begins is the right time.
Well, if we accept that we are constantly changing, that our variables are updating every single day, influenced by every person who arrives, then our constant motion is creating new knowledge, new potential, new capacity.
So that accumulation means that a big new experience, a career change, a new relationship, a move, can only logically begin when the person you are now, the updated version, is primed for it.
Exactly. You might have wanted to start a business 5 years ago, but the person you were then would have failed. You didn't have the knowledge or the confidence.
It starts now because the variables finally align.
Right. But we also have to talk about those truly external beginnings, the things totally beyond our control.
Like a natural disaster or a health crisis or a market crash, those don't feel like my right time.
And that requires the ultimate level of acceptance, recognizing that those external events are the inevitable result of global variables.
The sum of countless other people's decisions and natural laws.
Exactly. The beginning of that difficulty was the output of a vast, complex system totally outside of your 3 personal variables.
So where's the freedom in that?
This is where we find profound, actionable freedom. The source teaches us we are not passive victims waiting for fate. The freedom is in our response.
The action we take is the only thing we truly have power over.
Yes. We decide to prepare for what we can see coming. We accept the responsibility to act or not act if it serves our well-being. We understand that other people have their own variables, and we stop internalizing their chaos.
So when you put Law 1, 2, and 3 together, the inevitability of the past, the necessity of the people, and the perfect timing of the beginning, you realize something pretty profound. We're not victims of some cruel destiny. We are witnesses of collective freedom. We're watching billions of people operating under their own power, and the result is this beautiful, complex chaos.
That's a powerful way to put it.
So we'll leave you with this thought on people and timing. If you accept that every challenging person or unexpected opportunity arrived when it was meant to, what immediate, tangible lesson or necessary change did they contribute to your personal operating system, preparing you for the next step you were about to take?
So every beginning has to have an end, which brings us to the 4th law. When it ends is the right time. And this one. This is often the most emotionally charged of all the rules.
It is, because we fundamentally resist letting go. We are just programmed to see stability as security.
Right.
Movement is life, sure, but when the movement of a cycle stops a job, a friendship, a relationship, we see that ending as a failure, a loss. A tragedy.
But everything in the universe is cyclical. Stars burn out, seasons change, a conversation ends. The source just reminds us. Every cycle, whether it's short or long, fulfills its purpose. And the end happens exactly when all the combined variables, personal and global, align for that stage to be complete.
And the crucial insight here is about where our suffering comes from.
Yes.
The pain we feel during an ending, that grief, that resistance, that denial, is a direct result of us trying to artificially prolong something that has already fulfilled its cycle.
You can't force a seed to stay a seed once it started to sprout. You can't force a chapter of a book to last forever.
Trying to hold on just generates unnecessary suffering.
And it blocks the flow of energy. It prevents us from opening up to the new beginnings, the Law 3 events that are always waiting for us. Whether it's a job loss that frees you to find your passion or a painful breakup that forces you to become more self-reliant, the end happens precisely when the universe, the sum of all variables, says the lesson is complete.
So accepting the inevitable nature of endings isn't about resignation. It's more of a tactical surrender to reality.
That's a great way to say it.
Yeah.
You're allowing the natural flow to take over, and that frees up all the emotional energy you were spending fighting the tide.
Okay, but now we have to address the ultimate counterargument to this whole system.
Right.
If the past was inevitable, if people and events arrive by necessity, then where is my freedom? If I accept all 4 laws, am I just a victim of physics? A pinball in the pachinko machine?
It's a powerful and essential question. And to answer it, we have to go back to our definitions from the beginning. Destiny is the tendency without influence.
Okay.
So if destiny is the tendency without influence, then what is power? Power is the ability to influence reality.
And freedom.
Freedom is the ability to exercise power.
So the laws confirm the past is inevitable. That's law 2. We can't change it. But the framework also says that we have the ability to influence our variables. Who I am, what I know, what I feel, in the present moment.
Which means we absolutely have the freedom to exercise power to influence the future. This is the paradoxical key. Accepting the structure of reality is the first step to making effective change.
The chess analogy you mentioned earlier works perfectly here. A master chess player accepts the rigid, absolute rules of the game. The knight moves in an L shape, the bishop moves diagonally, the game ends in checkmate. Does accepting those rules make them powerless?
No, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Accepting the rules allows them to play better. They don't waste energy trying to make the knight move straight.
They focus their energy on strategy within the framework.
Exactly. Accepting these 4 spiritual laws gives us the framework of life.
Yeah.
It lets us stop fighting what's inevitable and focus our power, our influence on the decisions we make right now. That is real wisdom.
You gain power precisely because you stopped fighting battles you already lost. You free up the energy you were spending on regret and resistance, and you channel it directly into strategic action in the present.
You're influencing your variables for the future.
So if you're wrestling with a situation right now, a friendship you know has run its course, a job that isn't helping you grow law 4 isn't telling you to just give up.
No.
It's an invitation to lay down your emotional sword and find peace in the fact that the cycle has completed its purpose.
And a new one can begin.
What cycle are you currently resisting that, if you accepted its natural end, would immediately free you from unnecessary suffering and allow a new, necessary beginning to emerge, armed with the wisdom you gained during that cycle?
Now, to truly use the freedom we've been talking about, that ability to exercise power in the present moment, we have to get over what is probably the single biggest psychological barrier for most people.
And what's that?
The deeply ingrained habit of confusing responsibility with guilt.
That confusion is so crippling because we equate taking responsibility with blaming ourselves.
Yeah.
We avoid taking ownership at all. We'd rather play the victim, which guarantees we learn nothing, and just repeat the same mistakes over and over.
And the source material offers this radical, really empowering redefinition. Responsibility is not a heavy anchor that drags us down.
Guilt is the anchor.
Guilt is the anchor. Responsibility, when you embrace it correctly, is described as a shining shield.
A shining shield. I love that imagery. It totally transforms the concept from being a burden into a tool for empowerment. So what does that shield represent in practical terms for someone listening who's struggling with self-doubt?
It's a symbol of authority, of maturity, and of genuine freedom. The practical definition of being responsible is simply having the ability to respond to whatever circumstances arise.
The ability to respond, not the blame for what happened.
Exactly. It's the ability to use your updated variables, your new knowledge, your current confidence, to influence the outcome of the present moment. It's not blaming yourself for the fact that those circumstances happened in the first place, because the four laws already confirmed that the past was inevitable.
This is the truly liberating piece.
Hmm.
When you fully accept Law 2, that what happened was the only thing that could have happened, the whole idea of guilt just evaporates.
It can't exist.
Right. Guilt depends on the fantasy that you could have done better back then, but acceptance confirms you were already operating at maximum capacity for the person you were.
You step out from under that shadow of, I should have done better, and you step into the light of the shining shield. You take responsibility, the ability to respond for today's challenges, because today you're a new, more capable self.
You leave all that heavy, useless baggage of self-blame behind because you know the past was just necessary to build the person who's capable of responding right now.
This leads us to another major psychological hurdle: our intense habitual need to judge and label everything. We constantly grade people, events, situations as good or bad, right or wrong.
And that's where we sabotage ourselves. These value judgments, especially when they're based on our emotional preferences or some unrealistic idea of how life should be, they prevent us from interacting with reality authentically.
Yeah.
If something painful happens, like losing a job, we label it bad. And then we're totally blinded to the necessity of that event and the opportunity it's creating.
The invitation of these laws is revolutionary. Set aside all those excessive emotional judgments. If you accept that what is, and that's the only thing that could be given all the variables, you stop wasting precious energy on this emotional, moral grading.
You start seeing the world as just data, as inputs for future decisions rather than personal tragedies to complain about forever.
And that shift is what makes true acceptance possible. And we need to be really, really clear on what kind of acceptance we're talking about.
Because when people hear accept reality, they often hear passive resignation.
Yes. I guess I'll just give up and let things happen to me.
The source material is adamant. This is not passive resignation. It is active acceptance. It's a dynamic process of seeing reality exactly as it is, the rules of the chessboard, the forces in the pachinko machine, so that you can work with it effectively.
Active acceptance gives you clear vision. For instance, if you actively accept Law 1, that a difficult person showed up for a necessary lesson, you stop reacting with anger or victimhood.
And you start asking, okay, what specific boundary or skill do I need to update based on this interaction? That's active.
Right. If you actively accept Law 2, that a past mistake was inevitable, you stop dwelling on regret, and you immediately focus your energy on what you can influence right now with your updated knowledge.
And if you actively accept Law 4, that an ending has arrived, you don't just mourn the loss forever, you proactively seek the new beginning that you've been prepared for.
Knowing that holding on would only create stagnation. This active response is what transforms you from a victim of your circumstances into an active participant in your own evolution.
That structural removal of guilt and replacing it with the shining shield of responsibility, that's the core psychological freedom that a powerless mage is offering.
Absolutely.
So we really want you to grasp this distinction. What situation or past choice are you still holding on to guilt about? If you use the second law to remove the judgment of good or bad, what specific responsibility, the ability to respond with wisdom, not blame, can you take today to move forward, leaving the crippling guilt behind for good?
We started this deep dive by acknowledging that these four laws, on the surface, they risk being dismissed as just superficial memes.
Yeah, easy to scroll past.
But by really exploring the logic, by defining destiny as tendency without influence, by dissecting the three moving variables, and by distinguishing between guilt and that shining shield of responsibility, we find they contain this practical wisdom that can radically transform the daily experience of struggle and dissatisfaction.
The transformative shift, as we've seen, is really about recognizing our place in the universe. We stop being these passive victims who are confused by random events.
Right. And we transition into becoming conscious witnesses of collective freedom. We observe the dynamic, rule-bound motion of reality, and we recognize our own powerful, unique role in influencing the flow of the future.
And the greatest treasure this path leads to is an immutable inner peace. This isn't a peace that depends on whether things are going well or not.
No.
It's achieved when we stop fighting what is, when we embrace reality as the necessary outcome of immense complexity. And we find a profound serenity that no job loss, no breakup, no difficult person can ultimately take away from us. That acceptance is the constant, immutable center we finally discover.
The source material's promise is that the power to transform your experience is completely internal. You don't need magic, you just need understanding. It doesn't require you to change the world, it requires you to change your fundamental relationship with the world. And these four simple yet profound sentences, the spiritual rules, are the precise map for that necessary inner journey. They provide the framework for acting with wisdom, with foresight, and with courage. By removing guilt about the past, they enable true power in the present.
Which paradoxically reshapes our outer reality for the better. So as we finalize this deep dive into the wisdom brought to you by a Powerless Mage presence, we'll leave you with one final thought for reflection. Thinking about the peace and freedom these laws promise, how would adopting just one of them, say, accepting Law 1, the right person, when dealing with a current conflict, or Law 3, the right time, when frustrated by a delayed change, the way you approach your biggest current challenge this week?
Don't simply take our word. Put everything you heard here to the test. Make this knowledge truly yours.
Remember, the power is yours.